I had fallen away from the faith for 20 years, and then we joined a new parish, and we sat down with the pastor, and he said, "What activities are you going to be joining?" My wife knew that I hadn't been to Mass in 20 years, and the priest said, "Can you sing?" And my wife goes, "No, but my husband can sing." So I was shanghaied into the choir, and I'd not been in church in 20 years, and here I was singing bass in the choir. And also about that time, I got a magazine called Sursum Cordae, Lift Up Your Heart, a throwaway magazine in the mail. I'd never got one before, and I never got one after, but it said, "Presbyterian minister becomes Catholic." It was Scott Hahn's conversion story. So I read Scott Hahn's conversion story, and I'm going, this is a guy that's really smart. He knows the Bible backwards and forwards, and he gives up everything, his life, his friends, his church. He turns his back on them because he is drawn by the truth. And I was so impressed by that, I started reading all sorts of conversion stories, his and John Henry Cardinal Newman, and Newman saying, to be deep into history is to cease to be Protestant, going back and reading the early church fathers. Because I'd never really thought about the Catholic faith being true, I just had it sort of spoon-fed to me. So in any case, I started going to Mass, I started reading everything I could get my hands on, and I was sort of a spiritual Catholic. I believed in the truth of Catholicism, but that's sort of narcissistic because religion is messy. Religion is dealing with other people, going to Mass. And so I'm in the choir. I started lecturing. I started bringing speakers in, including we had Scott Hahn come to teach us at St. Anselm's. Went back to Lourdes when my mother-in-law was dying of cancer, and as opposed to when I was in high school, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I can remember. They gave me a copy of the stories of the conversions and the miracles, one of which was a little boy who was Belgian, who was normal when he was 2, then he got an infection of his eyes, and he was blind until he was age 8. So his mother takes him to Lourdes, he has communion, they take him to the baths, nothing happens. In Lourdes, the Stations of the Cross are up on this hillside. So back in the 30s, this woman is with her little blind boy. She's going up to the stations on her knees, then going back to the path to see the boy. And after he had taken the bath the day before, she comes back when she's on the stations. She's looking around, she can't find her son. She's looking and yelling, there's no one else there, Jean-Pierre, Jean-Pierre. She looks way up the hill. There's the little boy. She goes running up the hill, and here's little 8-year-old Jean-Pierre. He's down on the ground. He's picking up a twig and looking at this twig. And she said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He looks up into her eyes and he says, "Mother, I never knew how beautiful you were." And that reminded me that I had forgotten how beautiful my mother, the church, was. I had forgotten. The seed was there, but I never knew why. So it was such a wonderful experience. The volunteers they had there, it was a wonderful experience. And then I saw at Lourdes that God, even if you're suffering, even if you're dying, that suffering is redemptive, that He truly loves His sons and daughters, that we are sons and daughters of God. We're wounded, but that we are still children of God. St. Augustine said, "Thou hast created us for Thyself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in Thee." C.S. Lewis says, there's only 2 ways of looking at life. You either say, "Thy will be done" to God, or you say, "My will be done." And to me, sometimes scientists want it to be, "My will be done," and they want to understand everything from their point of view without God. Modern scientists think they want to be free, but there is no freedom without God. In the pre-modern world, mankind knew that there was sin, and the question is whether you were going to be saved. Now in the modern world, everybody thinks they're going to be saved, and nobody believes in sin anymore. And Catholicism is looked at as moralistic, judgmental, guilt-ridden, and superstitious. But we are not free at all, and there is no happiness apart from God. One of my favorite authors, G.K. Chesterton, used to like to say that the secret of happiness is in humility and gratitude. And even the Greeks, Aristotle said, happiness is not a feeling or a superficial, but it's the true goodness of the soul. St. Augustine famously said, if you believe, then you will understand. And with Christ and with God, it's a relationship with a person, and so in order to understand, you must love first, And when you love, then you will believe, and then you will understand. Chesterton had a famous expression that he used for people that believed in science and reason. He said that poets and artists don't go mad, but logicians and scientists and accountants go mad. He said all that the poet wants to do is get his head up into the clouds. And the problem with the scientist wants to get all of heaven inside of his head, and it is his head that splits. So when I was trying to figure it all out myself, I felt like I was getting a splitting headache. So the truth is known by not just science, but by faith. Because the science can explain how, but faith explains why. And I understood that in my work when I would look into the eyes of patients and I see Christ in these patients. The aspects of God I think about are truth, goodness, and beauty. And scientists seek the truth through reason. Others seek goodness through the will. But what about the heart? The heart looks for joy and love and ecstasy and happiness. And as Pascal, the philosopher, said, the heart has its reason that reason knows not of. So we all want to be happy, but there is no happiness without God. And we must remember that Jesus is a real person. He became one of us, the staggering fact of the incarnation. So if you love God, then you will understand. And how do you do this? Through prayer, through good works, through the sacraments of the church, especially the Eucharist, where God becomes one of us and gives himself to us. I think that God loves us as his children. We are not evil. We are wounded sons and daughters of God.